solution. So the big question is, where does Athens go from here? And in the short term, which kind of conditions will it commit to try and get the rest of the Eurozone firmly on its side? Vincenzo Scarpetta is a political analyst at Open Europe, the think tank, and he joins me now live in our London studio to discuss this. And Vincenzo, as we just heard there, this is a short-term fix. And even in the shorter term, we don't know which conditions and how much detail the Greek parties are going to be putting on the table to convince Brussels that they're in at least for the next 4 months.
Yes, the situation is very much open. We know that by the end of the day, the Greek government is due to send a list of reforms to its Eurozone partners, and this list of reforms will be then subject to approval by what we now have to call the institutions, so the European Commission, the European Central Bank and the IMF, what we used to call the Troika. Again, I mean, what we had done on Friday was a tentative deal for a short-term extension of the bailout program, and we already saw that in order to achieve that, the Greek government had to make substantial concessions on what their electoral promises were, because, for example, to mention only one big example, important example, is the fact that the Greek government has committed not to take any unilateral action and not to roll back on any of the reforms passed by its predecessor. So this is already means breaking one of the most important promises made by Syriza during the election campaign.
And already we're seeing some hardliners coming out within the Syriza party decrying this U-turn, aren't we? They're going to have a hard time selling this to the Greek people to get them on board, not just Europe.
It's the Greek people, but it's also the party of the Prime Minister. I mean, we have seen this iconic 92-year-old MEP from Syriza called Manolis Glezos. He's a World War II hero who has apologized to the Greek people for being part of what he called an illusion, because according to him, what the Greek government has been doing with this deal is just renaming fish as meat, while the substance of what the new government is now expected to do in terms of conditions and reforms and privatizations is pretty much the same as the previous government had to do.
So if we look at these reforms that are likely to be particularly contentious, pensions, obviously, that hasn't been tackled. That really is the elephant in the room, isn't it? And then labour laws and things like that. There seems to be more room to give Greece a bit of leeway on its surplus before paying back the debts. But there will be other things. Which ones will be the most contentious points that are going to be difficult to negotiate on both sides?
So I think the reform agenda will be composed of a number of different things. I think as long as we talk about stepping up the fight against tax evasion, corruption, I think that part is going to be the least controversial because, of course, Greece's Eurozone partners would welcome any effort on that side. The sticking points will certainly be privatizations because the new Greek government has said that he wants to discuss any case individually. So the risk from Eurozone partners' point of view is that the new Syriza government will stop privatizations out of ideology. And then, of course, we have reform of the public administration, pension reform, labor market reform, and I think a lot will depend on how much detail there will be in this list. I don't expect it to be particularly detailed. I mean, it should include enough things in order to win approval from the institutions, but I would not expect, for example, to have any concrete figures or numbers in it.
So overall, just briefly, if I had to ask you whether this was positive or negative, the deal that we saw on Friday, which one would you go for?
Well, if the idea is to avoid Greece's exit from the euro, that was a positive thing because at least in the short term, the risk of Greece leaving has receded slightly. But in the longer term, I mean, there's a lot to play for. And again, the domestic political fallout, so how the Greek government will manage to present this as a victory at home is far from clear at the moment, and that will be interesting to watch.
Vincenzo Scarpetta, always a pleasure. Thank you very much for coming on the show there. Vincenzo Scarpetta, political analyst at Open Europe, the think.